Welcome to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. This is a podcast for faithful women who want healing in their relationships, guidance from God, and internal peace. Each week, you'll hear mental health concepts taught through a spiritual lens from me, a licensed clinical mental health counselor, to help you start thinking in a higher and holier way. Welcome. I'm so excited about this month's theme. We are going to be talking about preparing your kids for future things. So stay tuned. I'm going to be talking to some amazing experts that you won't want to miss. All right. I am so excited to welcome our guest this week. We have Brooke Romney on the podcast. Welcome, Brooke.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, you have a wealth of knowledge. I love everything that you post and put out in the world, and especially your manners books. That has been a part of our scripture study every evening at our house, and we just love it. So we appreciate everything you're doing. Why don't you introduce yourself? Maybe there's one or two people listening that don't know who you are, but I think everybody kind of knows who you are. Why don't you give us a
You
little
are so
introduction?
nice. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I am a mom of four boys. My oldest is married. I have two grandkids. I have my second son's on a mission. I've got one who's a junior, and then my youngest is 12.
Awesome.
I think probably most people know me from my Modern Manners books, which I'm so grateful that they are working in people's homes. I have a funny story. We were doing our manor last night, and it was don't make fun of questions. And my 12-year-old was like, oh, I always make fun of people's
Oh,
questions. So just
that's
so
awesome.
everyone knows, it's not like we have these down. So if you see my children in public, please know that we are also works in progress. I did not write
Yes.
this because we have it all figured out. I wrote it because of all the holes I see in our home, just as well as, homes
Yes. I
around the
love
world.
that.
So that's been really fun. I'm just really passionate about, my first book was I Like Me Anyway. That holds
Yeah.
my heart, talking about embracing imperfection, connection in Christ. Um, while I know the manners books are the most useful and easy to implement, that one definitely speaks to an LDS woman's audience,
Yeah.
and something that I really love and go back to often, the experiences that I share there. And yeah, I love being online. I love being able to help people and connect there. I feel like we've grown a beautiful community of
Yeah.
parents who are really interested in deliberate ways of teaching, but also understanding that life is not perfect and there's no such thing as perfect parenting, and we're all just kind of figuring it out.
Yes. Yes. And I was so excited to have you on um, to talk about this topic. I've seen you post about it a couple times, and the way in which you approach a lot of things, I love how it makes it as a parent. Sometimes when you read posts, you're like, oh, I'm failing. I've got to do all these things. But you always seem to post it and I'm like, I can do that. I feel like that's manageable. Or I think I'm doing a portion of that. Maybe I'll add this in. So I really wanted to have you come on and talk about teaching our kids to deal with unkindness, conflict, rejection, which are just kind of a part of life, right? Like there's not a way to avoid that. So maybe
Mhm.
let's start off our discussion about like where do you see kids dealing with a lot of conflict, unkindness, or rejection? Maybe in unhealthy ways, or where are they encountering this that you see the most that we would need to address this?
I just think it's part of everyday life, just like it was back when we were teens and kids. People Kids often don't have great filters, and they don't
Yeah.
like process what they're saying fully before it comes out of their mouth. And so,
Yeah.
you get it at the youngest ages where people don't have any really ill intent. It's just sort of what they're seeing and calling out.
Yeah.
And then we also see it through, junior high and high school. And it's interesting. I think there's just as much of it back when we were growing up as today. I also see, like, on the good side, I see a lot of sensitivity and kindness around
Mm,
things that maybe we didn't see back when we were growing
that's
up.
true.
I see people really like sticking up for people who maybe don't have a voice or the ability to defend themselves. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really good things happening too, for our kids. I think they're more aware of
Yeah.
differences and how we are supposed to treat each other. Whether that always translates into what they're supposed to do, what they do, is a
Yeah.
different story. But I think they see it everywhere. I think they see
Yeah.
it at school. I think they see it on the playground. I think they see it in sports and in band and all of the things. Like, it's just part of our fallen world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Like I'm always talking about how we're not going to create a world that doesn't have opposition. That's like
Yeah,
the opposite of the plan of happiness, right? Like we're going to
right.
have opposition. And it seems like it does come in that form of, conflict with other people or unkindness from other people, or even rejection in different ways, maybe a relationship, a job, maybe on a mission, like preparing our kids for all avenues of that are going to encounter that from, preschool all the way until they're elderly, right? Like we're all
Yeah.
still experiencing that in years to come. So I love that you're coming and talking about these tips. So let's dive in. What is your first tip for parents? And I want to make the caveat too, is that, even if you're not a parent, maybe you don't have kids at home still, or maybe you're not a mom, like you're teaching kids in some way, right? Like you are maybe you're teaching them maybe you have a calling at church where you're teaching kids. Maybe you're an auntie, maybe you're a grandma, or maybe you're just an influence to neighbor kids. Like you're teaching in some way. Even in the grocery store, you could probably teach something if you see something happening. So if you're thinking about turning this off because you're thinking, I'm not a mom, maybe pay attention of how you could use these tips as well. So let's dive in. What is your first tip for people teaching kids about this conflict, unkindness, and rejection?
Okay, so my first tip is helping them understand that this is just part of our world. It's
Yeah.
not personal. It's not like you're the only one that someone's ever said something unkind to. And also kind of reframing conflicts that it's okay for us to have different opinions. It's okay for someone to say, "Oh, I don't really like to play soccer." And
Yeah.
that's not conflict. That's just somebody sharing the opinion. And
Yeah.
it's okay for you to say, "Oh, you don't like soccer? I really love it." And it's okay for us to feel differently than people without getting our feelings hurt. And so that's something that I feel like maybe kids today have become a little more sensitive than they necessarily have to be. It's okay for us to feel differently. It's okay for someone to enjoy one activity. It's actually even okay for someone to enjoy your friend more than they enjoy you. That's
Yeah.
just totally normal. And
Hmm.
and sometimes as I'm helping my kids understand these things, I like to bring it back to them,
Yeah.
where I will say something like, I remember a time when my one of my kids didn't get invited somewhere, and some of their other friends did, and they were walking home with someone after school, which can be hard.
Yeah.
You feel very, very alone. And so he came home, and I think it's really important for us as parents or anyone who is, you know, cares about teens or kids, is to first offer empathy and say, that really is a bummer. Like
Yeah.
I I hate feeling left out too. And it's so hard to feel left out. And so always leading with
Yeah.
empathy and understanding, not brushing their feelings aside. That is not helpful, and
Right.
it doesn't increase connection or relationships. The second thing I like to do is, I think as a parent, I think it's important for me to be able to coach my kids through hard feelings. So
Yeah.
not just sitting in that like, oh, it's the worst. I think parents often can add to the drama. So,
Yeah.
in that position, you might say
Yeah.
something like, oh, that's so rude. Why would he invite everyone but you? Going on and on,
Yeah.
making it worse than it already was. And I really
Yeah.
love to pull back and kind of make myself be the adult in the situation, even though it's hard for us as adults to
Yeah.
see our
Yes.
kids
Yes.
hurt. That's really, really
Yeah.
painful.
Yes.
Um, so offering empathy. And then the second thing I like to do is making it a little bit more logical. So I would say something instead like, you know what? I've actually never seen that friend that you're so sad didn't invite you. Are
Yeah.
you good friends with him? You know,
Yeah.
because you've had friends over a lot to our house, and that friend has never come over. So are you close to that friend, and helping him realize, okay, if he invited
Yeah.
four friends over, that friend wouldn't be one of the four. He might not even be one of the
Right.
10. And
Right.
so helping him understand too, it always feels bad to be left out. And that friend isn't that close to you. You're not in the same
Yeah.
class, or there's a reason maybe.
Yes.
And then I think it's really important for us to empower our kids. That's something that I feel really strongly about. I think sometimes we get stuck in that first step of empathy and like really relating, and we forget to continue the
Move it
process and
forward.
and
Yeah.
empower. Yep. And
Yeah.
so what I like to say in that situation is there someone that you would like to come over? Is there a friend that you would like to call, so that you can have something fun to do? Or would you like to run next door? It looks like so and so's home. and
Yeah.
helping them understand that they're responsible. They're responsible for friendships, and they're responsible
Yeah.
um, for making those friendships and creating a fun life that they enjoy. And I know this isn't possible for every kid. And I've been there too. I know that
Yeah.
there's kids who tried really, really hard and things still don't work out. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of kids need that empowerment and that
Yeah.
encouragement to figure out how to create a life that they're excited about.
I love that normalizing kind of is the skill here, but breaking that down into we don't want to brush their feelings aside, right? And discount them in the normalization of that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the feelings are real, even though it might be normal, right? Even though it might be
Yep.
something that we have control over or can do something else. It's the both and concept, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we can be sad about this and we can move forward and take care of this, and that can be powerful in teaching them that concept in with rejection or unkindness or conflict with somebody is that you this is normal, this is a part of life, right? And we can do something about that. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's really important as parents that we help them go all the way through the process with their kids.
Yes. Yeah. And you bring up a really good key. Like empathy is always your best bet. Like if you don't know what else to do, express some empathy and then wait and see what comes with that. Just reflect back what you're hearing them say, and to get them talking, also labeling their feelings and getting them understanding what they're actually feeling too. So that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah, and I think it kind of depends too. Like if the kids are younger, if they're older, I had somebody gave a great suggestion where they said they've started one of their teens processes things verbally.
Yeah.
And so they started asking their teen as they like before they would tell them about a full situation, they would just say, would you like me to just listen or would you like me to help you find solutions? And I think we hear about that like in adult relationships or in marriage relationships, but what a wonderful thing to start early on, not just for that relationship, but then the child starts to understand, oh, I'm a verbal processor. I want to
Yeah.
work this out on my own, but I need to do it out loud.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a great idea. And getting to know your kids and what they think and helping them realize that they also have great ideas and they can find solutions. They don't always have to come from the
Yeah. And then it's okay if they're coming to talk that out
parent.
with
Hmm.
you. They're not needing a solution necessarily from you, but that's just how they process.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was a great suggestion from a
Yeah.
reader.
Yeah. That's very cool. That's very cool. Yeah. Learning how your kids take in information. Like I have one
Mhm.
that likes to be quiet and alone and process that by herself and then come talk later. And one that's like a verbal processor and needs to talk, but will say, I just want to talk. Don't give me any advice. And so if they know that, that's awesome that they can do that.
Yeah, so
Cool.
helpful to help them understand that early on too.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. What's your next tip?
So my next tip when it comes to conflict or feeling left out, like those type like rejection, I wanted to go to the rejection part. And I think that the more we can help our teens understand that they have control of the life they're living, the better
Mm.
they will feel, even when there's rejection. And so, not every kid is going to have that ideal high school or junior high life.
Right.
And helping them understand that there are other opportunities. It doesn't have to look like what you saw in the movies for
Yeah.
you to have a great high school experience. And so, when parents come to me and their child, it's not the typical experience that everyone was hoping for. I like to remind them that there's a lot of ways for kids to still feel connection and inclusion, even
Yeah.
if it's not, like going to prom, right?
Yeah.
So, what I would suggest is a couple of things. The first is don't overlook having a job or a volunteer opportunity
Mm.
that helps your kids feel purposeful and like they are a part of something. It might
Yeah.
not be what you had hoped, but that will fill in a lot of the gaps when it comes to time, a community. And a lot of times, kids will find really good friends at work. So
Yeah.
if your kid's really struggling and they don't have enough to do and they're home every weekend or their group of friends kind of moved on
Yeah.
without them, I just really suggest helping them get involved in a different way. And if you can, looking for jobs that hire a lot of teenagers or in person jobs where they're going to have, like, maybe they're not getting that connection they were hoping for at school or through a fun friend group, they will be getting it through a job or a volunteer opportunity. So I think that there's a lot parents can do to encourage a lot of like healthy connection that isn't
Mm,
always typical connection.
I love that. So thinking outside the box about ways and opportunities kids can connect and find that purpose and that meaning in relationships so that it may not come if they feel that rejection or that unkindness from another place, that they can find that other places as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really kind of getting out of our own way as parents, thinking that there is like one ideal way for someone to
Right.
have a junior high or high school experience, and just broadening the way we think about it, celebrating their wins, letting them know that you're proud of them for different things, like, wow, you
Yeah.
already got a raise at your job, or I talked to your volunteer coordinator. She's so grateful to have you. Um, helping them look for things like clubs or like outside of school activities that
Hmm.
might bring them together with people that have similar interests or similar hearts, or are more open to letting people in than sometimes junior high or high school groups can be.
Yeah. I was just thinking how this translates into adulthood or transitioning into adulthood, like missions, right? Like
Mhm.
that when, and I see this happening a lot more often with missions too, that people, missionaries are trying to connect in different ways, service opportunities or attending different locations, things like that, not just having the traditional knock on the door and feel that rejection, but looking if they have this idea of I can look outside the box for connection, that might translate to a mission. Or maybe you're in college and you don't get into the program you want to, or you're not able to get into the housing. What are other creative ways that you can still have this interaction or connection with people that still fulfills what you want, but maybe is just a different avenue or side street of where you're trying to go to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and even like you said, like even into adulthood, I
Yeah.
mean, if anyone has ever moved into a new neighborhood or a new city, there's a lot of work that goes into creating relationships. And I think
Yeah.
it's so helpful to give our kids skills early on when things don't always just fall into your lap and they're not easy, helping them understand the effort and work that comes into creating connection and relationships. But that effort is usually worth it.
I like that. I think it's kind of been brought up in a couple of my podcasts as we're doing this series, is that being that example, like when you
Mhm.
feel that rejection or unkindness, what are you doing to model that as well, right? Like if
Yeah.
you are feeling that from maybe a ward that you're in or from a friendship group, like what are you doing to reach outside of your box to get those needs met and maybe take the action rather than waiting for other people to act and include you in that process and being that model for that as well.
Yes. Yeah. That's so great. And that actually leads into my third tip
Awesome.
is helping our kids understand that there are people that are looking for friends and looking for connection. There's good people out there who want to connect with you and who
Yeah.
will treat you better than you've been treated, who will be excited to have you around. I was actually just talking to a mom who said that her daughter had recently changed friend groups. And I was just asking a little bit more about it. And she said that her friends just kind of stopped texting her. They stopped calling her. They stopped including her. She wasn't sure what had happened. It was very kind of strange. Nobody would say, like, oh, it was because you did this or you did that.
Yeah.
And then she met someone new in a class at school and got to be better friends with them. And this girl invited her to go with a group of friends. And she's been having such a good time. She feels so wanted. She feels so included. She
Yeah.
feels so happy. And if one of my tips in the first Modern Manners book is find new friends.
Mhm.
And that one says if you are consistently, and I think consistently is important because everyone gets left out sometimes.
Yeah.
Everybody's friends are jerks sometimes. But
Right.
if it's a consistent thing where you're
Yeah.
consistently being left out, or kicked out of a group chat or not invited, that it's time to look for new friends. And I think the manner says something to the effect of, like, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
And it's going to take some work and it's going to take some time. And the people you find might not even be as cool as the people you were with before.
Yeah.
But all those things aren't going to matter if you end up with a group of people that value you, that care about you, that include you, and like you for who you are. And sometimes we get really, centered on, well, you have to take me for me. And I think there's some truth to that. And then there's a
Yeah.
lot of truth. Um, Also being the kind of person that people want to include. I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's just kind of a mean group of people, or people have gone separate ways. But also helping our kids just self-reflect, self-evaluate if this is happening often, right?
Yeah.
Saying, is there something that you're doing that's pushing people away? Or I
Yeah.
I listened to the way that you talked to your friend and it wasn't super kind, or I read that text message and it sounds like
Yeah.
you're stirring up a lot of drama. And being able to have some of those hard conversations with our kids, so that they are more prepared to be a
Yeah.
better friend and have better relationships.
Yes, I love that. And I think just that last part you talked about, like having these hard conversations helps them feel that comfort in wanting to come talk to you about other hard things in their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that you want them to feel like you are that place that they can come and talk to.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to friendships, that doesn't end in adulthood either, right? We're all
Right.
seeking that connection and friendships. And I see a lot of that even in adult women struggling with
Mm-hmm.
with friendships and how to make that. And so this is an awesome skill to be able to teach them to self-reflect and can I come halfway in this relationship as well, and is there something that I can do differently, and is this relationship really healthy for me, and really analyzing that and seeing what's best for them in this situation.
Yeah, and I think that goes along really well with the idea that, especially during the teenage years, there's two sides to every story. And as
Right.
parents, we only hear one. We
Yep.
only hear it from our kids' point of view, and our kids are going to want to make themselves look good
Right.
when it comes to talking to their parents about what is going on. And so, holding some space, especially for other teenagers, to not spread rumors or say like, "Oh, this girl's the meanest," like, we can't
Yeah.
stand her, she's such a bully. There's a lot that we don't know as
Yeah.
parents. We're not
Yeah.
present for all of it. We haven't seen all the texts, and so really holding space for teenagers as everyone's trying to figure things out and learning as they go. I believe that no adult should ever ruin the life of a teen. And
Yeah.
so being very careful as parents with how you talk about kids, how you talk about teens.
Yeah.
They're figuring things out, and you would want the same grace if one of your kids ever
So
was on
true.
the opposite side.
That's so true. That's something to think about for sure. Yeah, because you don't know the whole story. You don't know the intent of other things and what's going on. And so giving that other person grace and showing how modeling that, right? Giving
Mm-hmm.
somebody grace. I
Yeah.
love it. Awesome. These are so good. Okay, give us a quick recap of the 3 tips for everyone.
Oh man, now you're gonna put me on the spot. My brain is old. So
Normalizing,
seriously, I
right?
really can't go back. Okay, yes. Normalizing.
Yes.
And then also like helping them feel empowered, giving them
Yeah.
options,
Yeah.
and then helping them navigate when it's time to change or move on.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Those are
And if you can
beautiful.
say it better than I
Yeah.
can, please do.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. Those are great options and I think really helpful. And can be applied in so many areas. I feel like, yeah, we might have been talking about this, but maybe you're picking up on it in for yourself. Maybe these are just skills for yourself. Maybe you're experiencing that at a job or in the ward that you're in, and you can apply these skills as well in your life. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on and be with us here. Where can people find you? Where can they find your books, and find you and learn more from you?
So I love my Instagram community. It's the best place. If you are on social media,
Yeah.
please come join us there. So it's Brooke Romney Writes on Instagram. I also send, for those who aren't into social media, I send a weekly email, a weekly pep talk
Yeah.
email every Wednesday that I would love for you to be a part of it. Also highlight
Yeah.
whatever like popular posts I had that week. So if you don't love to be on social media, that's a really great option. And then all of my books are available on my website or on Amazon. If you love Amazon, super easy, just a quick click away.
Yeah. Okay. I'll link all 3 of those. Is there a place on your website they can get on the email address?
You know what? I think there is, but if you don't
Okay.
see it, then just let me know and I'll send it to you.
Okay. Okay. All right. Perfect. I want to link that because I do get your emails and they're awesome. So I think
Thank
sometimes we
you.
need to check out a social media and just read an email. It just feels different connection. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thanks, Nikki.
Thank you for listening to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. I hope you were able to find ways of healing, guidance, and peace. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend who would love to start thinking in a higher and holier way as well. Or hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any episodes. Also, check out the links in my show notes for other episodes you might like and links for other mental health resources on my website.